And now, The Return of Chronomaster by Roger Zelazny and Jane Linskold, as read by the Bathroom Reader for a one-take toilet top audiobook production. I am currently filling in for the Plurality Report, who is in the hospital because he was attacked by lazy, useless DHL workers while he was trying to do something actually valorous by working as a scab. Chapter 15. The rail ride proved to be amusing and confirmed Corda's feeling that Clea Triffitt had been a universe designer who would have been ranked with the best if she had lived. They got aboard a sleek bullet train that shot them out of the port area. Once they were away from the major casinos, the landscape around them flattened. In the darkness, they could see tall saguaro cactus and the rounder forms of sagebrush, juniper, and chamisa. As the train crossed into the desert, the sound of its passage changed. Its almost silent progress was replaced by a rhythmic thumping. An eerie whistle pierced the air. Startled, Corda looked away from the windows to see if the others had noticed the new sounds. He realized that the compartment had changed as well. The modern plastic and foam seats had metamorphosed into carved wood and velvet and gilt trim. Arabu laughed.
Chugga chugga, chugga chugga, chugga choo choo. Am I right in my guessing, daughter? Has this conveyance become an old-fashioned steam train?
Miriam reached to squeeze his hand. It has indeed, Father. Was it like this when you were here before?
I suspect that it was, Arabu confirmed, but I never rode on it. I stayed mostly in the trade centers. Today, when I went to my hotel, I heard the sounds shift and felt the furniture suddenly take on a new shape, and I thought that I was riding in a miracle.
They rode Arabu's miracle train into the Old West and escorted him to his hotel. When Arabu had gone to his room, Tico and Miriam excused themselves to return to the Oceanic. Corda stayed behind, pretending an interest in the architecture. He walked down a rough board sidewalk toward what Jester informed him was the location of Magnetic North. Old West Fortuna style owed as much to cinema as to history. The streets were dusty but not muddy or covered with manure. In addition to Arabu's hotel, storefronts advertised dry goods, livery stables, a post office, and a photography studio. Saloons outnumbered honest businesses 3-1. Odds Corda suspected were not far out of line with history. Jester indicated a saloon down where a street petered out into sagebrush. The sound of a honky-tonk piano playing a ragtime piece several centuries out of date for the setting leaked, along with bars of yellow light through the slats of the swinging door. "That's the place, partner," she drawled. "The saloon," Corda said. "I don't suppose that for once things are going to be easy and Magnetic North will be quietly out among the sagebrush and cactus." "Sorry, partner," Jester answered. "I've triangulated the readings, and it's in the saloon." "Oh, well," Corda sighed. "I couldn't expect anything else. Come on, let's check the lay of the land."
"Right beside you, partner," Jester said. "Keep your 6-gun low and loose. I sense trouble."
"Jas, don't overdo the act." His boots echoed with an inspiring solidity as he swaggered up the board walkway and into the saloon. Corda swung the doors open and was almost disappointed to find that no one paid much attention to his entry. The hour was late and the saloon almost deserted. A man in a wide-brimmed cowboy hat, white shirt, red bandana, and jeans sat playing the upright piano. 4 men in dark shirts, hats, and jeans sat playing cards at a small table about midway into the saloon.
"I'm bartender as well as entertainment at this hour," the piano player called over his shoulder. "At least for another hour, I am."
"What happens in another hour?" Corda asked, walking over to the piano and leaning against it. The piano player looked up and smiled. He had an honest face that reminded Corda somewhat of photos he'd seen of the older Roy Rogers.
"Shift change," he said laconically. "Then I catch some shut-eye until tomorrow night. Things will be quiet until the regatta is over, but we never close."
"Never?" Corda said, arching his eyebrows in surprise. "What about to clean or restock?"
"Nope,"
the piano player said.
"We just work around the card games. There's always at least one. I don't think I've ever seen that table empty. New players drift in and out, but the game keeps going."
"And guess where the magnetic north is, partner?"
Jester scrawled on his reed line. "They never leave?" Corda asked.
"Well, just about never,"
The piano player clarified.
"Sometimes they fold for a few minutes and go out for a smoke. Once somebody accused the dealer of cheating, and there was a break while the bodies were cleared away. Guess that's about it. Get your beer?"
"Sure," Corda said. They walked together over to a classic polished wooden bar. Corda sat on one of the stools and set his feet on the brass foot rail. He wondered if anyone ever used the polished spittoons that were set around the room.
"Draft good enough?"
the piano player asked. "Great," Corda said, handing him his credit slip.
"Draw yourself one while you're at it." "Thanks, but I'll settle for a sarsaparilla," the piano player answered. "I got a lunch date tomorrow. Don't want to deal with no hangover."
Corda lifted his mug, sipped, and discovered that the beer was quite good. He took a larger swallow. Behind him, he heard the card players muttering occasional comments.
"Give me two."
"Pass." "Fold." "Do better beats better."
"Any up."
The rules of the game, its fine points, its peculiarities, returned from memory as he sat drinking his beer. Sounded like they were playing standard 5-card draw. He hadn't heard anything he couldn't handle. "Think they'd deal in another player?" he asked the piano player, sliding him his empty mug. The piano player chuckled.
"They are always glad for another victim. You play poker?"
"A long time ago," Corda said, remembering marathon games 2 centuries back when he'd been working on the terraforming of Persephone. "I got pretty good. I bet it'll come back."
"Well,"
the piano player said,
"that's a bet I won't take. Don't see the percentage in it for me. Go on over at the start of the next hand. Put your ante in. Fortune be good to you."
"Thanks," Corda said. The piano started up again, this piece vaguely reminiscent of old movies where the idealistic Eastern dude takes on the outlaws. Corda couldn't help feeling as if a soundtrack was being provided for his scene. Striding over to the table, he paused where he could watch the play without snooping on anyone's hand.
"When you play,"
Jester offered through the reed line,
I could take a look at what the other players get and relay the information to you."
"No thanks," Corda replied. "I don't think these guys would take kindly to cheating dudes. I wouldn't be all surprised if the rule was shoot first and ask questions later."
"Brr,"
the PDA answered.
"Savage."
The dealer turned slightly in his chair.
"Ante up."
"That's my call," Corda said. He pulled a chair into the space 2 players had made for him. Even this close, the shadows of their hat brims effectively hid their faces. They sat with their hands loosely folded on the table in front of them. Although there were mugs of beer on the table, no one moved to drink. Corda found the entire situation unsettling. "What's the ante?" he asked the dealer.
5 credits,
the dealer answered.
"Game is 5-card draw, nothing wild, no house rules except one."
"What?" Corda said, trying to match his tough tone of voice.
"No messing with probability,"
the dealer said.
"That's a hanging offense. If we take the time to find a rope, otherwise, it's a shooting offense. Get it?"
Corda swallowed. He couldn't help but remember the probability driver setting on his universe tool. He hoped that possession alone wasn't enough to get him shot. He ran his credit slip through the anachronistic reader in the center of the table, and a chip dropped out. He added it to the heap on the table. The hand he was dealt was a mess. Not even an ace high. Corda folded immediately and let the others play out the round. The player directly across from him won with a pair of aces that beat the next best, a pair of threes. Corda kept playing, folding frequently, winning an occasional hand, taking his turn when the deal rotated to him. The other players were deadly serious. No one cursed, cheered, or commented on the action. The mugs of beer remained untouched. Corda was getting dry, but the intensity of the other players was such that he felt as if he couldn't move. He was beginning to believe that there would never be an opportunity for him to set up the resonance tracer when he saw the player across from him, the same who had won the first hand, slip an ace from his sleeve. It was smoothly done. Corda doubted that he would have noticed if he hadn't been looking directly at the player when he made the substitution. The player won the game with a short straight. When it was his turn to deal, he won again, this time with a royal flush. Corda decided that he had to act. "Wait a sec," he said, putting his hand over the pile when the player would have swept them in. "I want to check the cards. I thought I saw something."
"Cheating?" the winner said. "That's a serious accusation, friend."
Corda felt his heart pounding, but he couldn't back down now. "It is," he said, "but I think we'll find that there's an extra ace in the deck. An ace just like one of those that's sitting in your winning hand." The player to Corda's right wordlessly reached out and took up the deck. He thumbed through it, letting each card fall face up on the table. The winner drew a 6-shooter and angled it at Corda. Corda didn't let his gaze leave the falling cards, confident that if he did, the incriminating ace would somehow be palmed. He felt the barrel of the gun staring at him like an extra eye. 2 cards from the bottom of the deck, the ace of diamonds showed. There was a stir from the other players.
"There's already an ace of diamonds showing,"
said the player to Corda's left. "Drop, Sugar Pop!" Chester yelled. Corda did so just in time to avoid the deadly crossfire that blossomed from the guns of the other 4 players. The table fell to its side, scattering cards, beer, and poker chips in all directions. When the thunder of gunfire faded, Corda pulled himself to his knees. The air was blue with smoke and smelled of gunpowder. The cheater was dead, his chest a ruin of red holes. His hat had fallen off. Horrified, Corda saw that his features were those of a zombie, skin shriveled to bone, fleshless lips pulled back from yellowed teeth.
"Time for a smoke,"
one of the other players said. They clomped away in a group. Corda couldn't bring himself to check if they, too, were zombies. Trembling, he got to his knees.
"Second time this week,"
the piano player said. He had put on a fringed leather jacket and was obviously on his way home.
"Boy, I'm glad that this time it happened at the end of my shift. The next guy can clean up. I'm out of here."
Corda stared after the swinging door, knowing that he should have asked questions, too stunned to do so. He caught a faint odor of cigarette smoke on the wind. "Sugar Pop," Chester said, coming to hover in front of his face. "You better get the resonance tracer set up before the players come back. I don't think they'd like having you in the middle of their game." Corda hurried then, and when the reading was safely relayed to Chester's system, he folded the machine away. The relief bartender had come in while he was finishing up and was setting up a new game on another table. When Corda rose, he slid the table over so that the endless poker game would once again cover magnetic north. "Want a beer?" the bartender asked, companionably, getting a push broom from behind the counter. Corda looked at the zombie poker player on the floor, heard the clomping footsteps as the others returned. "No thanks," he said. Unconsciously, he echoed the words of the piano player.
I'm out of here.
Jester insisted that Corda take a nap, arguing persuasively that Christo must know of the regatta and that he would probably time his attack so that it came either during the race, when most of the cardinal points would be busy, or after the tourists had left Fortuna. Corda knew there was a flaw in her logic, but he was too tired to find it. Reason enough for him to get some sleep. He retired to his room at the Black Pyramid, told Jester to wake him if stasis fell, or in 6 hours, whichever came first, and then crashed into a deep sleep. Deep and dreamless sleep. He awoke refreshed and knowing what he had been too tired to see the night before. As he showered and cleaned up, he explained his worry to Jester. "If Christo learns I'm here, it may change his plans," he said. "Our profession is a small enough one that he probably knows me, either personally or by reputation." "You did say his style seemed familiar," Jester commented. "Go on." "Christo may deduce that I've been sent after him," Corda continued. "He must realize that the shutdown of herbs and aurons couldn't go unnoticed forever." Jester bobbed once, her attempt at a shrug. "I don't know. From what we've learned, herbs didn't do a lot of business with other universes. The saboteurs' luck ran out when those merchants showed up when they did. Aurons was equally isolationist." "True." Corda stopped, his comb halfway through his wet hair. "Jester, you don't think I'm being vain, do you? Am I stupid to assume Christo will have heard of me? I have been retired for a while." The PDA rested on his shoulder. "No, Sugar Pop, I don't think that's vain at all. I think it's constructive paranoia, something that organic brains do far better than electric ones. Still, there are a bunch of tourists here for the regatta. Maybe Christo won't hear about you." Corda pulled on a clean shirt and fastened his bottled time out of sight below its hem. "What I would do in his circumstances is get a printout every so often, say every 12 hours, on every ship to come into Fortuna. I'd scan the list for possible pursuit." "And your ship has been called the Jester for a long time, hasn't it, Sugar Pop?" Jester said. "That's right," Corda answered. "Even before I finished the programming for you, I called my personal vessel the Jester. I thought that too many people in my business took themselves too seriously. After all, we're just doing with lots of fancy gear what nature does all on her own." Momentarily, he heard the clacking of pool balls in his memory. "So, Christo," Jester said, "would have a pretty good chance of knowing that a ship with old Terran registry bearing the name Jester would be yours. He could double-check that easily enough." "Right," Corda said. "So we need to get to work. You contact the others and make certain they're okay. I'll get the direction finder and start narrowing down our options. Want to make a bet with me?" Jester giggled. "That's a serious thing here, boss." "I know," Corda said. I'm willing to bet the direction finder is going to lead us straight into the Black Pyramid. That's Alakra's central base of operations, and he wouldn't want the World Key too far from his main protections." "No bet," the PDA answered. "I have too much respect for your human intuition." The direction finder did indeed confirm Corda's guess. However, after they had pinpointed the reading from several different angles, they were confronted with a new problem. "I'm not really surprised," Corda said, "but access to the World Key doesn't seem to be available in public areas." "There's a nest of tunnels behind the walls," the PDA said. "I can't scan very deeply. What I do see is enough to confirm that we could go around like rats in a maze while the cardinal points tracked us down. The direction finder is only so good in a maze. What we want could be right next to us, but if there is baffling of any type, it will guide us the long way around.
Corda nodded. There will be baffling, I'm sure of that. Clea Triffitt had a good reputation. I can't believe she would have neglected a precaution so obvious.
Well, Jester said, I guess we just wander around looking for access points and trying to find one that isn't too well guarded.
Corda frowned. I hate the delay, especially since I suspect that Christo is well ahead of us. But I don't think we have much choice. If we draw off some of the security staff to chase us, then we're doing him a favor.
Remember what Alacra said, Jester added. He said that the way you would be most obvious was if you didn't play any of the games. The same would apply to the Saboteur. Let's go down to one of the main gaming floors. You can play, and I'll do some scouting.
Sounds good, Corda said. Maybe if I sacrifice a few of Alacra's credits, my luck will turn for the better.
That's the spirit, boss, Jester cheered.
Corda let Alacra buy him a club sandwich, an iced tea, and a handful of chips for the slot machines. Then he hauled his lunch over to an elaborate slot machine, shaped rather like a planet with several concentric rings of neon. Jester commented that she thought the machine looked cool, but for Corda, its advantage was that it had a table for his sandwich and a clear view of a major security post at the far side of the room. Corda figured that if there was any problem, the guard on duty there would be contacted, and maybe he could send Jester to eavesdrop on the message. It was a weak plan, but for the moment it was the best he could come up with. Taking a bite from his sandwich, Corda fed a few chips into the slot machine. The genius in the design of the slot machine became obvious as soon as he began to play. Like many sophisticated machines of its type, it paid off almost at once, then teased him with occasional trickles. However, its true magnificence was in the physical design. The same loops of neon that had attracted Jester's admiration now centered him on the machine. If he glanced to either side, their glare drove his attention back to the game. I wonder if Clea Triffitt designed these, too, he said to Jester, or if Alacra has some masters of human psychology on staff.
I'd bet the latter, Jester said,
examining the machine.
This is a manufacturing date of this standard year. Odd.
What, Jess? Corda said, dropping a few chips in.
I had figured that Alacra would have a manufacturing plant here in Fortuna, Jester said, but this is stamped with the hallmark of some place called Dice.
And Dice, Corda said, forgetting the slot machine, is the name of one of the other gods' pockets' universes. They really are in each other's pockets, aren't they?
That's a terrible pun, boss, Jester said. Still, I am forced to agree with the import of what you've said. Obviously, one of the ways that the God's Pockets Consortium protects its privacy is to trade as much as possible among its own units.
Good plan if you can make it work, Corda said. And from what we've seen, I guess they can. He played for a time, alternating taking bites of his sandwich with feeding chips into the slot. Looks like I'm going to run out of sandwich and chips right about the same time, he commented. Lady Luck doesn't seem to favor me today.
Why not use the probability driver? Jester whispered in his ear. I'd like to compute how much it affects the odds. I've been keeping track of your play so far.
Corda hesitated. I'd hate to cause any trouble.
Come on, boss, Jester said. Cheating is only cheating if you get caught.
You have a point, Corda said. But if some defense system shoots me, you're going to regret this. From the sheath on his belt, Corda drew the universal tool and activated the variable setting. Obediently, the solid metal rod shifted shape, becoming a device about 8 inches long, etched with stylized representations of the suits on a deck of cards. He touched it to the slot machine, felt an energy surge, and then fed a chip into the machine. The neon rings lit, swirling like Saturn doing a hula. Bells rang, heavenly music played, and a flood of coins poured out of the slot. Corda bent to insert a bucket to catch them, sliding the probability driver back into his sheath as he did so. "Satisfied, Jess?" he said.
"That was sure interesting, boss," the computer replied. "But it doesn't give me enough data to draw any real deductions. Try it again."
"I'm not certain that's a good idea, Jess," Corda said. "The cardinal point at the security post across the room seems awfully interested in the commotion." Jester brought her PDA down in front of him. Corda was absolutely certain that if she had eyelashes, she would bat them at him.
"Please, Renee, for me."
He sighed and surrendered gracefully. Again, he touched the probability driver to the machine and fed in the chips. Again, the heavens peeled, rings gyrated, and chips, a smaller amount this time, flooded forth. This time, however, he felt a hand on his shoulder. He glanced over and up. A cardinal point, identical as far as he could tell to west, towered over him.
"Excuse me, sir," she said. "It has come to our attention that you are using a device to alter probability. Please be warned that if we detect further use of it, you will be shot in full sight of the other patrons."
Corda blinked. He wasn't precisely surprised by the warning, but there was something about the guard's bored delivery that gave him chills. Of course," he said, trying to be as charming as possible. "I was just testing it. My name is Renee Corda, and I'm here—"
"I'm aware of why you are here," the guard said. "Your mission does not excuse you from obeying the law. Thank you for your cooperation in this matter."
Corda gestured to the buckets of chips around his feet. "Do you want to confiscate these?" The guard shook her head.
"You cheated fairly to get them. You may retain them. If they are too awkward for you to carry, the clerk will convert them to your credit account. Good fortune follow you."
"And you," Corda said. When the guard had departed, Corda looked up at the PDA. "Now do you have enough data, Jess?"
"Not quite," she admitted. "But this will have to do. The odds of you being killed are too high to take an additional risk."
"Gee, I'm so glad to hear you say that," Corda said sarcastically. "Let's go trade these chips in. I'm not interested in taking the risk that stealing is considered an acceptable form of cheating on Fortuna." Jester hovered as he gathered up his winnings.
"I'd give odds that it is. Wanna bet?"
"With you, Jess?" "I'm not stupid enough to take those odds." Corda had just finished trading in his winnings when Jester gave a glad cry and darted across the casino.
"Hi, Araboo," she chirped. "How's your luck?"
"Oh, very good," the blind trader replied. "First, I have found you, and secondly, I have an interesting anecdote for Renee. If you are here, he must be near."
"I am indeed," Corda said, coming to join them.
"How on Fortuna did you figure out where to find us?"
"I asked one of the cardinal points," Araboo said. "They knew precisely where you were."
"I'm not surprised. Jester got me into a bit of trouble with one of them. Did I hear you have some information for me?" Araboo nodded.
"I do indeed. Shall we find a quiet place to talk?"
"Sounds good. There's an ornamental fountain in the cafe across the hall. It should block out any eavesdropping. We can get some lunch if you're hungry."
"I've just come from lunch with my friend Sam,"
Araboo said, allowing Corda to take his arm and guide him to the cafe.
"But I would welcome, Demitas."
In the Fountain Cafe, Corda ordered Araboo a small cup of the thick, oily coffee the desert merchant preferred. To keep Araboo company, he ordered himself some calamari sautéed in olive oil with pimentos. Jester checked for listening devices while they waited for their order. When they had both her assurance and their food, Araboo began his account.
"When I was having lunch with my friend Sam, he decided to amuse me with an account of a rather colorful incident at the saloon where he works the late shift as bartender and piano player."
Arabu took a tiny sip of his coffee.
From his description, I realized that you, Renee, were the dude involved.
Hey, Arabu, wait a minute, Jester interrupted, her concern for Corda overwhelming her limited understanding of the very human concept of manners. You're blind. How did you know Sam was talking about Renee? Corda did not chide the computer. Her approach might be rather tactless, but he had been struck by the same point. Arabu, however, did not appear offended. In fact, he seemed rather pleased.
I recognized Renee because of you, little imp. When Sam described the dude as being accompanied by a smiling sphere that whispered in his ear and appeared to advise him, I knew he must mean you. Miriam has described you to me, and Sam's description tallied with hers on all salient points.
Sorry for asking, Jester apologized, but it did seem kind of strange.
Not at all. You look after Renee. I would not expect any less of you.
Corda finished chewing a tentacle. Spearing another, he asked, So your friend Sam told you about my encounter with the zombie card players. What else did you learn?
Something quite interesting. Earl Sam's Relief at the saloon joined us in time to hear Sam's tale, and he took it upon himself to supply the sequel, describing in hilarious detail how you ignored a fortune in poker chips scattered on the floor in order to set up a small machine and take a reading of some sort. Sam got quite excited then. It seems that a few days ago a young man came into the saloon and had a similar encounter with the poker players, and...
He paused, deliberately playing for suspense. Corda humored him. And
just as you had, the young man set up a small machine.
Arabu folded his hands complacently across his belly.
This young man did pause to take the chips, however.
Our saboteur, Corda said softly. He was there.
Indeed.
Arabu looked positively delighted with himself.
And he was not there alone. He was accompanied by a young lady Sam happened to know. She is the lead singer for a band here in the Black Pyramid Casino. I thought that you might be interested in this, for if she is still keeping company with Mr. Christo, she may know where he is.
Knowing that Arabu could not see his smile, Corda reached over and squeezed the old man's hand. Wonderful, he exclaimed. Christo may even be hiding out with her while he waits for the regatta to end. We'll go scout out the place. Do you know what the band is called?
Tophet Khan, Arabu said. They are a neo-jazz band. I would be interested in hearing them play if you permit me to accompany you. Their Glyphnod player, Glyphnod Garu, is famous even in Aurans.
Corda rose. Wait here. I'll go find out when Tophet Khan is playing next and see if we can get tickets. He came back a few minutes later and slid back into his seat. Good news, he announced. Tophet Khan plays in a few hours. I bribed the ticket manager and learned that they will be setting up now. He gave me a couple of backstage passes. We may be able to talk with the lead singer before the show starts. And if Christo is hanging with her, Jester added, we may be able to nab him. That's right. Corda turned to Arabu. Did Sam describe Christo to you? The photo that Alakra's security people had only showed a fairly average fellow with brown hair. Arabu frowned.
That is strange. I did ask, for I recalled your dissatisfaction with the description you had. Sam said that this other dude had light blonde hair and fairly strong features. He mentioned the nose and eyebrows particularly.
Well, Corda said, getting to his feet, we could be on a wild goose chase, but this beats sitting at a slot machine waiting for something to happen. I've settled the tab. Shall we go and listen to Tophet Khan?